This is Fred Beck from Fred Talks Fighting. Today, I'm very lucky joined by, once again, by James Lynch. So thank you very much for coming on again, James.
Hey, well, thanks for having me, Fred. I appreciate it. Excited to talk some fights with you.
So I was on your Instagram earlier seeing what you've been up to, and I see you playing golf. How's that going? Because I've always wanted to play golf, you know.
It could be
So
going
what
better.
guy
I've gone all in on golf this year. I played, not to bore your audience too much, but I played golf a little bit when I was younger, and then I took like this huge break from golf. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am, although most people know I'm in my like mid 30s. But I just didn't play golf for a while, and then I was invited out last year to go play some golf. Played terrible, and ever since then I'm like I gotta get back into golf. So I've gone all out. I've gone like luckily here where I live in Vancouver, the pandemic hasn't closed any of the courses, so I've gone almost every week I think since the beginning of the year, or at least very consistently. I've been out probably 20 times, and I'm getting better. I got a new set of clubs, and everything's going well. But I love golf. It's like a great thing to do, like during the week for me to get out and do something active. And we're starting to get some better weather here as well, so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. So I've always wanted to do golf because you can drive around in the golf carts. That always seems always
For sure,
appeals.
yeah. Certain courses, I usually don't drive with the cart, but still, it's when you're getting those longer courses, I play the courses I play are a little bit shorter, but yeah, for those like 500-yard holes, you'd need a cart for that. So yeah, probably when I do some of those bigger courses, I'll be doing that.
Yeah, one day when Fred was fighting, it's all worked out, and I buy myself a personal golf cart. All right, so let's talk some fights. So just recently, a couple of days ago, it was announced that Nate Diaz has got a back injury, and he's out against his fight against Leon Edwards, and it's been rescheduled. I think July. Yeah, been
It's
rescheduled
June. No, it's the UFC 263 pay-per-view, so it's June 12th. They rescheduled it.
June 12th. And I was surprised about this fight. A couple of reasons, because Leon Edwards, he's a big name, but he wouldn't get like loads of pay-per-view buys like a Conor McGregor would, for example. I know that he'll get the most pay-per-view buys, and it's also a co-main event, and it's also 5 rounds, which obviously be in Nate's favor. But what do you think about this fight? It's very interesting, I think.
I thought that way too. It was out of left field. I wasn't expecting it as well. And you bring up a great point in that if you look at Nate's last couple of opponents, basically since McGregor, he has fought either like a big name or like a former champion. Like Pettis was sort of the fight in between there where you could say, okay, maybe is Pettis as big of a name, but he's still a former champion. So why is he fighting Leon Edwards? So the more I thought about it, the more I have this theory that I think Nate's trying to finish out his contract. I think he's looking at what's going on with these YouTube boxers and all this stuff and going, look, these guys are making way more money than I am, and the fights are easier. And I think he's trying to get out of, I think he's trying to finish that contract as soon as he can. The other thing is, I mean, look at this for Nate. He's really got nothing to lose. He loses this fight, he'll still be getting big fights. It doesn't matter. But with a guy, like if he wins this fight though, he's going to get a title shot against Usman. That's what's happening, and that's why Usman's so delaying on the Covington rematch, I think, and some of these other fights is because I think he wants to see if Nate can beat Leon Edwards. I don't think he will, but still, I think the risk reward is pretty good. And I think it's also interesting that fight. I don't know how it will be on the other card that they've moved to the UFC 263, but remember it was supposed to be a 5-round co-main event. Well, that seems interesting. Why would it be 5 rounds? I think it's a money thing. I think Nate wanted to make sure that he got paid well, and in order to do that, they had to make it 5 rounds. So I think that's interesting. I don't necessarily agree that, again, I don't think there's any evidence either way to prove it, but I don't know if a 5-round fight necessarily favors Nate because Leon has, had main events before. We've seen that he can, he's very well rounded. I don't think it would be sort of an issue there, but yeah, on paper, Leon should win that fight. It's not a very good style matchup for Nate, and it's not even going to be that big of a buildup. I mean, Leon had an altercation with George Masvidal that people seem to just forget, and it never amounted to anything. So I think it's going to be interesting, but at the same time, like, I think for Leon, it makes sense too, because the problem with Leon, unfortunately, is that he's just had really bad luck. 4 canceled fights. His last fight was the eye poke with Bilal Muhammad. There was no need to do that rematch. The only reason Bilal got that fight was because Khamzat Chimaev was injured. So it's not like Bilal got enough merit. It was just sort of a right place, right time thing. So I don't mind him fighting Nate. And the thing is, like, Nate, no matter what, he'll have fans that think he can be champion again. There's always those same people who thought, oh, had he not got the doctor stop that fight against Masvidal, he was going to turn the tide and finish Masvidal, which I think 99% of people outside of Nate Diaz fans thought that wasn't going to happen. So there's always that intrigue. And kind of what I'm getting at is that if Leon beats Nate, that's like a big name on his resume that would warrant a title shot. Does it warrant a title shot in terms of merit? Absolutely not. But it does in the eyes of the casual fans, because that's how you sell it. Oh, how did Leon get this title shot against Usman if you're doing a pay-per-view? Oh, he beat Nate Diaz? Oh, that's a great win. Well, it's not really, but still the casual fan thinks otherwise.
I mean, you mentioned that the altercation between Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal in England, where he punched him up, and I think it was a 2-piece in the soda. I mean, that'd be make a great promo. Because remember when Conor McGregor threw the dolly at Khabib's bust? Of course, they're going to use that in the promo. And then you'll get, you mentioned a lot of casual fans there. You're going to get loads of casuals watching that fight because of that altercation they had. Do you know how you mentioned how many fights Nate Diaz has left in his contract? Do you know the number of how many?
I don't offhand. I actually know his manager. I should probably find that out. But I don't imagine it's much left. And I think it's the same sort of thing with Nick. I think that's why Nick wants to come back because he's still under UFC contract. I think these guys want to get out of the UFC as soon as possible and go look at lucrative opportunities over in boxing. Because I think people forget Nick Diaz has a boxing fight. He had one in 2005. These guys know that they could go over there and fight these YouTubers or whoever and make some good cash. And I think they're looking at the economics of this thing, especially with Nate. I mean, Nate's. Let's be honest here. Nate never got that Conor McGregor fight. He's probably fighting in Bellator right now, if we're being honest, right? Like, or something like he was never going to fight for a title again, I don't think. But that gave him like not only a bigger payday, but it gave him the luxury of being this name going forward. I mean, prior to that, I don't think people cared that much about who Nate was fighting. So, yeah, I think I don't have any insight, but I would imagine it's not that many left if I had to guess.
I remember Nick and Nate Diaz, they were sparring Andre Ward, who's one of the greatest boxers of all time, because he needed some southpaw sparring. And Andre was saying how good they were, all pressure the whole time. Yeah, so the fight between Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz will be very interesting. I think a lot of people will tune in for that fight. If we move down a weight class, which is kind of the weight class that Nate Diaz should be fighting in, is Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. And is this, I don't know, but is this the only time someone's challenged for a world title in their second UFC fight?
That's a good question. There might be an earlier like situation where that happened. I was going to say Nick Diaz, but then Nick had a stint with the UFC before he came back from Strikeforce. Because I was going to say he had the one fight and then got the title shot. I can't remember. You probably if it has happened, it's been a while. So yeah, it's been. You're right. Because even Alvarez lost his debut, right? People forget he lost to Cowboy and then he had to fight a couple fights and then get the title shot. But yeah, you're probably right. It's been a while, anyways. I think since that's happened.
They'll probably bring it up in the press conference. And so a lot of people kind of feel that Michael Chandler has kind of fast-tracked his way to the UFC title. In a way, he kind of has. But on the other hand, he did get a knockout in the first round against, it's gone out of my head. Dustin Poirier's last opponent.
Dan Hooker.
He knocked Dan Hooker out in the first round. A lot of people, that was a 50-50 fight. A lot of people thinking Dan Hooker was going to catch him, especially with one of those deadly knees. What are your thoughts on this fight then?
Well, in terms of Chandler getting the shot, I'll just mention that first. I kind of get people being reluctant about it, but the UFC was high on Chandler even before that. He was the backup for Habib and Gaethje without even having a UFC fight. So you know how the UFC feels about him. I mean, that just doesn't. I don't ever know someone getting signed and being a backup right out of the gate. So there's that. He had a good performance. I think the UFC knows that Chandler's marketable, right? He's American. He can speak good English. He can cut a good promo. We saw that after the Hooker fight. And he wins by, he's got good striking. He's got good knockouts. So he's an easy sell for the UFC. So I think in terms of him getting the title shot, it was never a question. I'm surprised Oliveira got the shot, not because I don't think he deserves it. I've been beating the Charles Oliveira drum for a long time and felt like this was long overdue for him getting the shot. But I'm just surprised because, the UFC, it seemed like they were kind of jerking him around. Remember, they told him he had to fight Chandler instead of Hooker. And then Oliveira's like, look, I just fought Ferguson. Like, I'm not going to go back in there right away. So there was that. And there's all this other stuff. So I like the fight because I think it's a tale of two cases. It's a case in Chandler where he took advantage of a good opportunity in finishing Hooker and getting the title shot. With Oliveira, merit-wise, he absolutely deserves it. I mean, 2 back-to-back dominant wins over Kevin Lee, beating Kevin Lee at his own game, outstriking him, and then beating Tony Ferguson, almost ripped his arm off in the first round. It's a very intriguing matchup. And in terms of my pick, I'm going against the grain here. I think the odds are almost even, but I see a lot of people picking Chandler, saying he's going to repeat the performance. I like Oliveira here. Oliveira's not been one to get finished quite early. He's been in the UFC for so long. He's been through the ups and downs. He's been called a bust. He's had weight cut issues. He's finally in the right weight class, and he's hitting his stride at the right time. What he did to Ferguson really opened my eyes to showing that this guy is not only a title challenger, but that he can win the title. And I think if Chandler can't go out there and get an early finish or can't utilize his wrestling, I think Oliveira can take advantage in multiple areas, especially on the ground. I know Chandler has, I think, the most submission wins in Bellator history, but Oliveira's got the edge on the ground, in my opinion. He's got a better ground game. So I just think Oliveira has more ways to win. And I think he's been more seasoned for an opportunity like this as opposed to Chandler. Because prior to Dan Hooker, who were some of Chandler's best wins? Benson Henderson, not looking so good now. Henderson lost his last fight, a little bit older. Beat Sidney Outlaw, a guy who couldn't even, get signed to the UFC. Like, you kind of get where I'm going with this. And it's not Chandler's fault. He has to fight who he's given. But if you look at who's been more battle tested, it's definitely Charles Oliveira. So that's why I give him a slight advantage in the fight. And I think he wins.
Yeah, that's quite interesting about Michael Chandler's competition there. That's quite a good point. He hasn't fought as weird people as Charles Oliveira has. And that armbar from Charles Oliveira to Tony Ferguson, I think and most people have seen that. That's nasty. Don't know how Tony held that for so long. And the thing about the UFC, there's always the difference between UFC and boxing is most of the time in UFC, big fights always happen. And boxing they happen, but not as much as in the UFC. And UFC have now got kind of Mike Tyson like heavyweight champion in Francis Ngannou. I think they always wanted. It's a very good marketing tool, advertising. And Francis Ngannou, his high when you make a promo for Francis Ngannou, you got loads of stuff to work with. Some of the knockouts are so vicious. In a fight between Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis, obviously this already happened, but that's the fight that most people think will be next. What are your thoughts on that fight?
I think Ngannou wins quite easily. Look, nothing against Derek Lewis. I like him. Entertaining guy. Probably one of the best guys on the mic you'll ever find. And the guy's got knockout power. He absolutely can knock out Francis Ngannou if he needs to. He's got that. But Ngannou is just on another level. I mean, to see what he did to Stipe in that rematch, the sprawling, the speed, just the accuracy of his shots. I don't think anyone's beaten this guy for a long time, and that includes John Jones. I think if John went up and fought Francis, I think Francis wins that just based off how much he's improved since losing to Stipe a couple of years ago. He's in with the right coach. He's got Eric Nixick in his corner. He's got good training partners at Extreme Couture. I think it's going to be a long time to do that. And let's get real here. I mean, Lewis won his last fight because Blades made a mistake and Lewis capitalized, and all the credit to him. It was a decisive win. It's the first time actually Curtis Blades has been knocked out cold. People talk about him getting knocked out by Francis. Those were TKO losses. Blades still got up after that, but he was knocked out cold by Lewis because he literally like went in and Lewis threw an uppercut, and it was like the worst thing you could do for Blades and the best thing you could do for Lewis. But that first round, Curtis Blades won. And I think had Blades avoided that shot, he might have I think he still would have won the fight. I think 9 times out of 10, Curtis Blades fights Derek Lewis. He probably beats Lewis. It just Blades made a mistake, and Blades has been knocked out before, so it's whatever. But I just think Ngannou's faster. He's got this new confidence. He's coming off the biggest win of his career, defeating arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time. Lewis doesn't have that. And Lewis has talked about how he doesn't want to fight for the belt. It's almost like he's being sort of shoehorned into the situation. Remember, he wanted to fight over him after his last fight. He was on a loss. So it's like, where's your head at? And he's older. I just don't see a way other than a knockout, maybe I hate to say fluke, but a fluke knockout. I think that's the only way Lewis wins this fight. Ngannou all day, I like in that fight.
I mean, that's a very good point about. I remember Derek Lewis kind of backed a bit to the fence and then threw that his right uppercut, and wow, no one ever wants to be hit by that shot.
Nope.
The nasty shot. All right, James, I don't take too much of the time out today because I know you're a very busy man. And so thank you so much for the interview. And you've got a number of podcasts out right now. Where can people find those?
The easiest thing to do is just to follow me on Twitter. I work for a lot of outlets. I have like, I think 4 podcasts right now. But first off, thank you for having me on, man. You know, I always enjoy talking to you. My DMs are always open for you. You know, I always love talking to you about some fights. Yeah, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. I'm always posting my content in there. You can see it. And you can check out my main YouTube channel, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. I'm always putting my interviews on there and playlists. I do a podcast every Monday. And that's pretty much it, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for that, James. That was really good. Thank you.
Anytime, man. I appreciate it.